This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
At last, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy. This is the tagline on the cover of each issue of the Marvel Star Wars comics from 1977 and beyond. I am Richard Woloski, and I want to welcome you all to Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics. I am here to take you through the story, share memories of reading the series as a kid, and to make sure you younger fans know the names Jackson, Crimson Jack, Sir GX, and ever in doubt, Forp can be used as a verb, noun, or adjective.
And I am Sarah, and I'm kind of a newbie to the classic Marvel Star Wars comics, but this is the show where we take you through each issue of that vintage comic series from the 70s and 80s. So I'm going to give you my new perspective on these since this is the first time I'm reading these comics.
And I am Randy Martinez. I am a Star Wars artist, official Star Wars artist, I should say. And I'm here to also share my memories and childhood memories, those of which I can remember, and stories from those times, reading and loving these comics. And I am here to give my unique insight from the point of view of an artist, which I claim to be on better days.
Well, speaking of being an artist, an official artist, last time on our last episode, you were saying that you were hoping to be accepted into the coveted list of Star Wars artists for Star Wars Celebration Orlando. Any updates on that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they looked at my work and they said that it was totally great and I can go to Celebration Orlando this year.
Yay!
Oh, you had us worried there for a second.
Yeah, so I'm happy to report that, yes, I was accepted this year into Celebration. I should say I'm honored to say again, because I have been at several celebrations, which you do have to be accepted into, and I never take it lightly and or take it for granted like it's something that I just am owed. But I am happy to say that I will be going back to Star Wars Celebration to have some fun with fans, saw some artwork, and just be amazed by everything that is Star Wars Celebration.
And how many times now will this make it? You're an official Star Wars Celebration artist.
Wow, let's do a count here, okay? So count with me, okay? I went to art school, so my math, is a little shaky. Let's see. Star Wars Celebration 2 was my first as an artist, but they did not allow prints to be sold yet. That was not anything that was even mentioned or thought of yet. We just went. And the interesting thing about that, side note, is that my table, if people were there, remember, I really only had like 6 things on my table. And that's because literally 2 weeks before the show, Lucasfilm bought literally every single piece of Star Wars art that I had ever created since 1999. And there was a lot of it all at once. Because one of the things they did is that before the show came around, you had to offer every piece of artwork that you'd ever done for Lucasfilm that you're going to bring to the show and to Lucas. And
it's kind of random.
Yeah. And so I did that and not thinking that, well, it's just, I'm the new guy and it's mostly cartooning and caricature. So I don't know, maybe they'll buy some, maybe they won't. And 2 weeks before I got letters and they bought every single piece of art. And it was the biggest check I'd ever gotten in my whole life. So I was just like flipping. And so
you had posted a picture of yourself on your Facebook page of you and your table at Celebration 2, and it was like 3 pieces of artwork behind you.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Randy, did you forget to pack something?
Yeah, and that's why. And like I said, they had not instituted the exclusive art show prints that every artist gets to do yet that year. So everybody else, the table was filled with sketches and things they had done with Lucasfilm, and I had these pieces of art that I had scrambled to put together just so I had something on my wall. It was a good it was a good problem to have. But
right.
So that was Celebration 2. That
was Celebration 2. And then Celebration 3, where they first allowed us to do prints. I did that one. I was accepted into that and sold a print grand finale. That was the name of my print. And then Celebration 4, which I also had I did the Sith Rocks exclusive print, and that's where I did the exclusive key art for the entire show, which was really, really cool. And Celebration 5, I did the key art for, which was the first one in Orlando. And I did 13 pieces of key art, which they sold there on posters and programs and everything. I did so much art for, like literally for Lucasfilm for the show, that I opted not to have an artist alley table because it was going to be impossible to compete with myself. Because I mean, literally, it didn't make any sense to get a table or be part of it. So I went and in support of the artwork that I did for the show, and I signed a lot of posters and things like that. And
nice.
I actually sang there at that show and did I sung the song Padme live for about 1,000 people in the opening ceremonies.
It's a great song. You know what? Let's hold on for a second so we can play a clip of that.
Oh, cool.
I think about you always. You're always on my mind. I know I'm not supposed to, but oh my, oh my. All I want is to be near you, no matter what it takes. I'd leave the Jedi Order, break every rule there is to break every rule that they can make. No, there's nothing I can't take. No, there's nothing I can't take from my Padme. Yeah. Turn me upside down. Whoa, my Padme. Yeah. Our love's gonna burn us to the ground.
So, wow, that really takes me back to memory lane. And that was really, really great. A lot of fun. And I just want to give credit to Jimmy Mack for recording that. He did a great job of doing that. And I'm so happy he did, because I totally forgot. I was so excited. I totally forgot to I didn't get any pictures of my own. I finally got some from fans, but I didn't think to record it or put my phone on record so I could pick up some audio. And Jimmy thought ahead and did that. And that's why we were able to have that great recording you just played.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That was Celebration 5. Celebration 6, I didn't make it out to. Celebration Europe in 2007, the very first one in London. I did the key art for that one as well. You guys might remember the Sergeant Lucas poster, and this with all, it looks like Sergeant Pepper's but Star Wars. I did that.
Yeah.
And I did another version of Sith Rocks for that show for the exclusive print, and then Star Wars Celebration Japan in 2008.
Wow.
So I went there for Artist Alley, had an exclusive print, and Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. I was there for that one and was in the art show with an exclusive print. And then now Celebration, I lost count. See, Orlando
well,
again.
They're not gonna like number them, I guess. So Star Wars Celebration Orlando marks your 8th.
That's my 8th
celebration.
One. There you go.
Wow.
As an artist.
And celebrations are really personal for you, because it was that Celebration 1 where you tackled Steve Sansweet to the ground, forcing him to show your artwork to the higher ups. Am I getting that story right?
Well, I didn't exactly tackle.
No, I'm just trying to add some dramatic tension to it. You pushed him down lightly?
I'm like twice his size, so it probably felt like
I know. Oh, that's funny.
But yes, they are very special. Thank you for recognizing that, though, because that's where I got my start as an artist, with Star Wars Celebration 1.
Now, moving on to Star Wars Celebration Orlando, can you reveal what you're working on?
Yes, it's actually on my desk right now. We're looking at it. Doesn't it look great?
Oh, here we go. Wait a minute.
I don't believe you.
Everybody, you're not supposed to be seeing this right now. This is exclusive. So can't you see it looks really great right here on the podcast?
Can you rattle it or something? Give us something to prove that you're working on it?
Here, look. Listen real close.
That sounds amazing.
See?
It has a 40-year-old feel to it. Am I getting anywhere with that?
Sort of. You're in the right direction. I told a fan earlier, because I had posted a picture of my Celebration 3 print and the grand finale, and I said, now I'm looking at this, it actually looks, there's a lot of similarities to that piece and this piece I'm working on, but it's completely different. So I hope that gives you a clear view of what I'm working on.
It's like this piece, but it's completely different. I love it, Randy. I love your tap dancing.
This one, there is something for just about everybody.
So you're really good. I think you've been taking lessons from Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Well, Dave will just come right out and say, I'm not giving you nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Even when he doesn't have to. He says, I won't answer your question.
Exactly. All right. So we're not getting anywhere with Randy on this. So hopefully by the next episode, which will be out right before Celebration Orlando, we can get more information. But can you give us this? Do you know when you can reveal what you're working on?
They have not told us that yet, but I'm assuming probably very soon, which is why myself and so many artists are trying to wrap up what they're working on, tying things up. And it's a lot of work, but I think it's really going to pay off, and fans are really going to be excited about it, and hopefully buy my print. Ultimately,
Nice.
that's the biggest goal for me,
Well, last time we had a lot of Skywalkers tell us that they were very excited to get your print, and they showed up at our interactive podcast stage show with that print for you to sign.
Yes.
Yes. That was very cool of them to do that, and I'm glad to hear everybody's excited about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're so looking forward now to seeing you at Star Wars Celebration Orlando. But now, should we turn to our comic of the episode?
Yes.
Sure.
All right.
Yes.
So when we last left off last episode, it was with issue number 11.
Star Search.
That's right. And I will do a little recap for you just so we all remember. So Han Solo and Chewbacca had left Aduba 3 only to be captured once again by Crimson Jack and his gang of pirates. Oh, I'm so excited to see him back. Now, Princess Leia Organa had also been captured by the pirate while on her way to the Drexel system to find Luke, who had gone missing. But Han and Leia secretly devise a ruse to trick the pirates into taking them to the Drexel system by claiming that the rebels have stockpiled a treasure there.
Randy?
Meanwhile,
On Drexel, Luke Skywalker and the droids have become stranded on their wrecked spacecraft floating in the ocean that covers the planet, and, if you remember the last panel, they are attacked by a giant sea dragon!
Nice.
And that's immediately where we left off, and then we come to DOOMWORLD, and that's immediately where we come back.
Now, in this issue, Luke Skywalker, C-3PO, and R2-D2 are still stranded on the water world of Drexel. However, they are caught in the middle of a battle between the sea dragons, one ridden by a dragon lord, and the hydra craft piloted by Governor Quarg's scavengers. The combatants are battling for the prize of Luke's wrecked ship, as anything mechanical is a rare commodity on the ocean-covered planet. Luke and the droids are captured and brought back to their base, where Luke tries to convince Governor Quarg that the droids would be more useful to them intact instead of being stripped down for parts. Randy?
meanwhile at the Justice League. Wait, wrong cue.
We're not cutting to Crimson Jack Star Destroyer, not the Justice League. Alright, now, Han Solo is leading Crimson Jack and his gang of pirates to the Drexel system under the pretense that there is a treasure to be found. Now, I gotta ask you two, did you guys find the Rogue One reference in this issue?
I did not.
Wait. Let me see.
Well, you know what? Just that'll be a
No?
tease. That'll be a tease.
Okay.
We'll find out soon enough that there is a Rogue One reference.
Okay.
Now, this issue, DOOMWORLD, was released March 14th, 1978, written by Archie Goodwin, penciler by Carmen Infantino. So, Randy, tell us again what a penciler does and how that is different from an artist.
Well, okay, in the comics, you basically have three parts to creating what we see on there in terms of the art. We're not going to even talk about the letterists or things like that. We're talking about the art here. So you have a penciler, an inker, and a colorist, and they're all really, really important to the process. And the reason you have those is because comics have to come out, real fast. Okay, and most artists out there, not one person can just do all that work and get things out at the same time. So what happens is, in time for the next issue. So what happens is the penciler will sketch everything, the pages and the cover. They'll do it all in pencil, and they'll hand that off as they finish. Like, let's say they finish the first page, they hand that off to the guy on the next desk or wherever he's at to start inking. And while that guy's inking that, the penciler goes on to work on the next page, and so on and so on. And then the third part, obviously, is the colorist once the inker is done with that, which is a whole other process, which we don't really need to get into here. But to answer your question, the penciler is a guy who lays everything out. He does what the artwork looks like for the most part, what we're looking at, but in pencil. So the inker, if you guys remember seeing Chasing Amy, that movie, yes. Chasing Amy, where they talk about comic books and they're teasing the guy saying, "Oh, you're a tracer."
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a nice way of saying what an inker does, but more or less it kind of is. But it depends on the inker. Okay, there are some inkers that's all they do. They just basically trace what's on there, and that's usually good enough if the pencil work is good enough.
Right. So the penciler really is the primary artist,
so to speak. He's the since there's three people, well, let's just say there's two people involved with the pencil and inking of the creative process. I would say they're probably about, depending on the inker, and in this case, I would say 60% of the job is the penciler, because there's another artist that you didn't mention, and his name is Terry Austin, and he is a very famous inker, and we'll talk about that in a second here. In other cases, the penciler is about 75%, and the inker does about probably the other 25%.
Okay.
And so with the inker, what I was going to get to is Terry Austin. Okay, and I'm very actually ashamed of you, Richard. You did not bring his name up because he's in here now.
Well, you didn't let me finish.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just caught up in the word penciler because it seemed like someone who doodles rather than is one of the first artists to tackle a panel.
Yeah, as for the most part, you're absolutely wrong. It's not just the doodler. They're most of the creative process of what you're looking at.
Well, right. But just seeing the word penciler, I would think doodler, which is why I wanted more of an explanation on this, because I knew it was something big. Because I knew Carmine Infantino is a big, giant artist within Marvel, so he doesn't sit at his desk and doodle. He does something more. So that's where you come in as an artist.
Yes.
All right.
So now explain about Terry Austin. I'm really excited to hear about him.
Okay. Well, did you have an intro for him, Richard, or do you want me to just go ahead and keep going?
No, that was just one of the continuing credits on the pencilers and the artists.
Okay, so Terry Austin. Okay, you had mentioned that Carmine is a big name in comics. He is a huge artist in the Silver Age comics and has worked on just about every comic title that you can think of. Going all the way back to those two timely comics, with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and through DC, obviously through Marvel and Star Wars, and he's part of. He doesn't get the stage credits like Jack Kirby does or John Byrne or these big name artists, but he's one of those solid, standard, very consistent artists that were just always there, kind of keeping the ship running, so to speak, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Not a huge name in terms of anybody's real favorite artist, but he was one of the standard guys, and he was around for a long time, won a lot of awards. That was Carmen Infantino. And then we have Terry Austin, who is more of a rock star in terms of fame in the comics world. Terry Austin, at least with me, and most people I think would remember him most for his X-Men credits that he worked on from 1977 to 1981 with, of course, the legendary John Byrne.
Yeah.
Terry Austin was famous for his embellishment and his details. So you can see that very clearly in these comics, Star Wars comics that he draws, his embellishment, especially with anything that has any gears or any type of ship or anything like that. He's very, very gets into details in a big way.
So he's like the opposite of me. I can't draw ships or fire trucks or anything like that mechanical to save my life, but when it comes to nature things like animals and flowers and plants, I can draw those all day.
And I have noticed with R2 and 3PO, they are much, much more detailed than we have seen them in past issues.
Yeah, a lot of this credit, I believe, has to go to Terry Austin. He's just an amazing inker, and And I'm not taking anything away from Carmen. I'm just saying the style that we looked at right now, which is very, very different than the beginnings of Star Wars comics, is due to Terry Austin. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Good breakdown there.
Wow.
And I had noticed that there was much more detail, and that explains why. Now, let's talk about the cover art by Carmen Infantino and Terry Austin.
Our favorite part.
Yeah. Now, here, Luke and the droids are backed into a corner on the bow of a boat. 4 thugs have them at gunpoint. We want those robots, boy, and that lightsaber can't stop all of us. Now, Randy, how would you break down this cover artistically?
I think basically it's a good comic book cover. You have a basic everything pointing towards the center concept, and of course why the word is escaping me, because it's a very important word, not concept, but the composition. Thank you.
Yes.
Is very everything pointing towards the middle. Which is fine. A lot of comics do that. You don't always have to be tricky with your compositions, and so you have the expressive gestures of C-3PO, backing away, but it's also his directions also pulling you back to the middle of it. And same with R2. He's kind of off to the side, angled a little bit, with a little expression, as expressive as a comic book version of R2-D2 can be. And then you also have the always kind of interesting, the back of the heads and the guns pointed at Luke. And that's before you pick apart any of the inaccuracies too. But we're just talking about composition here. Color is fine. You have these guys are experts. They know what they're doing. So the color composition is fine. And it's just an basic but exciting comic book cover.
Now, why do you think the artists chose to give Luke a red lightsaber instead of a blue?
This is pretty consistent in the Star Wars magazines and comics. Right. And I think we have to, again, look at the time when this came out, and you got to try to put your mind into the United States and the world where we were at that time. And we didn't have videotapes. We didn't have a whole lot to draw from, even in our own minds.
At this point, Star Wars had almost been out for a year. You would think someone would know to give him a blue lightsaber, or someone would have said, hey, before we release this issue, let's just repaint his lightsaber so it doesn't look like it's a pinkish red.
Well, I think they were just being consistent with previous comics, because that's what it has been. It's been kind of that laser pink red color. But I understand, yeah.
That doesn't explain Chewbacca. We'll get to him in a few minutes.
Oh, okay. I was like, Chewbacca's not on this cover.
Well, see, in my mind's eye, okay, Star Wars geeks weren't around yet. We'd all, and you know what I mean by that. It's like this culture of Star Wars has not been created yet. Star Wars is out there, and everybody's loving these movies. But just by looking at pictures of the original Comic Cons and things like that, this culture, this pop culture of Star Wars geeks and comic book geeks who pick everything apart and find the little details wrong, that didn't exist yet. In terms of on a large scale like it does now. So these kind of details just weren't important back then. Literally they were not important. And what was more important was selling a comic book. And red, of course, the eye goes to red first. There's a million reasons to pick red, but red is sexy. Red is, it says danger. It
draws your eye. You're right.
Yeah. So the selling of the comic book, the selling of the excitement, the selling of everything was way more important than being accurate, because nobody really cared.
Right.
There's very, very few people who cared back then.
You're right. Like me, who was very confused that, having seen Star Wars at this point maybe 10 times in the theater, Luke had a blue lightsaber, but the Kenner toy had a yellow lightsaber.
Uh-oh.
Now the comic book has got a red lightsaber. So I was very, very confused, and I didn't know which way to turn, and I just spiraled downward.
Apparently you
did.
Into
a life of crime.
Wow.
That explains a lot, man.
You know what? And I do have an explanation to the red lightsaber.
Okay.
I think, Randy, you're right on it when you say that red is the dominant color, and that is going to draw your eye right in the center, like you also said, Sarah. So I think ultimately that's why they made it red. So now with all of that, Sarah, did you have any, before we go on to our Facebook feedback, did you have any comments about it?
Well, I actually, these Facebook feedback is going to surprise me, but they might say something that I'm going to say, which is, why does Luke look like Sir Galahad from some low-budget 70s, community play? He looks funny. His hair. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, look at his chest. Look how all popping that is.
I know.
And one question I had is, you see all these thugs on the bottom, you would think at this point they would know the creatures were a big selling point, and they would have made those characters all creatures. I guess these guys were easier to draw since Marvel was dealing with a lot of G.I. Joe comics and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They just knew how to draw those much quicker.
That's a good point. The one guy does have an antenna on his helmet, so that's good enough.
And then we have Peter Pan. So
yeah, all right. You guys put me in my place.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, I actually have a pretty good explanation for that red lettering and the new Star Wars logo.
Ooh.
This year, 2017, is actually the what anniversary for Star Wars? 40th anniversary. Now, if you do a quick Google and you say what is the precious stone or metal of 40-year anniversary, it is the ruby anniversary. Which would explain also that the Star Wars Celebration logo is red.
Oh.
And if you start looking around, a lot of official Star Wars things are red this year.
Okay.
So I know it's not as sexy or as exciting as Reds for the Sith or something like that. And it could be, but I happen to believe that it just has nothing more to do except for the anniversary.
Okay.
All right, Randy. Well, I totally disagree with you on all that. Totally. But, you know what? For those Skywalkers who heard our last show, you'll know where I was going with that. But let's deal with this show over here.
Yes.
Now, let's move on to the Facebook feedback.
On this cover.
So, Sarah, did any of these stick out to you?
All right. So, first of all, this Facebook feedback was garnered from our Facebook group. Is that correct?
Yes,
it's from the Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook group. So, if you're listening to this and you have not joined our Facebook group, you can head over to Facebook, search for Skywalking Through Neverland group, and request to join because it is a closed group. All right.
And before each time we record Classic Marvel Star Wars comics, we do put up the cover art and let the Skywalkers comment, and then we'll read some of their comments right here.
So it's really fun. All right. So do you want to start? Or should I?
Ladies first.
Okay. All right. So Bruce White, he says, loving that raspberry lightsaber. Okay. So it's not ruby. It's not red. It's raspberry.
I can see that.
Yeah.
No, it's a scratch and sniff cover too. If you scratch it, it will smell like raspberry.
It's true.
Asterisk, that's not really true.
All right, so Bruce goes on to say, always was fascinated by the far upper left corner depiction of Fabio as Luke Skywalker. That hair! Look at that flowing hair!
I can't believe it's not butter!
I know! Oh my gosh!
A lot of people, like Patrick Izzo, had comments about the lightsaber.
Yes.
Patrick says, Luke with his Sith lightsaber. Mm-hmm. Anything sticking out to you, Randy?
Well, I can't pick my own quote.
Okay, so I will. Randy Martinez says, this is in quotes as if Luke is saying this, I'm wishing now that I had bought the high-end saber rather than this Hollywood Boulevard street vendor knockoff.
Aw, that's so cute.
Well,
Okay, Amanda Bond has hit on it. Is it just me, or does Luke look similar to He-Man? He totally does. That said, I love how Luke would defend C-3PO and R2. He wouldn't just hand them over.
And Michael Moriarty says, G.I. Joe is on the bottom right, and C-3PO is about to drop some wushu.
Wow.
Yeah, that does look like G.I. Joe. And
what's wushu?
I guess some form of karate?
Yeah, I believe.
I thought it was like a Japanese word for dookie or something.
Oh, no. No, like he's going to kick someone.
Yeah, he's going to kick some wushu. But now if you look at R2 on the other side of the cover, his shoulders are all shrugged. I didn't know R2 could do that.
What?
See how his shoulders are, his arms are raised so they're above, they're going above the dome.
Oh.
Now, if I was to defend that, I would say we find out new things that R2 can do in every movie, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So there's probably a million things he can do that we don't know about.
Like shrugging his shoulders. Okay, I don't see that on Wikipedia. So it must not be true.
Doesn't Chopper like shrug his shoulders and stuff?
He has his arms, so he can just switch around and go.
Just like
you
that.
saw that, right?
Yes, I did. All right. Well, maybe in episode 8, this is what R2 is going to do. So I see a connection there. You never know. All right. Now, with all of that, let's get into the initial thoughts. Let's give a quick initial thought of this issue. Randy?
Well, my thing is I focused a lot on the artwork. And as a kid, if we're talking about, stories from when we're kids, that was really important to me, was the art. And I didn't obviously know how to read yet. So the stories need to tell the story. I mean, the illustrations need to tell the story, which they do in this one. And I think it's not super exciting as some of the other comics yet, but it definitely feels like it's leading to something bigger.
Okay. Sarah?
I kind of disagree with you, Randy. I actually flew through this comic, and sometimes these are a little bit of a chore to get through for me, so all of a sudden I was done. I'm like, wait, that's the end of the comic? And I actually think some of this art is very, movement focused. You have the water moving, you have Luke swinging his lightsaber in various places, and I think the whole issue flows and moves very, very well together. And I was captivated.
They're certainly taking their time and connecting all the stories between Luke and the droids, Han and Chewie, and Leia coming to save Luke. And I wish they would move just a little bit faster, especially where Han's story in this issue doesn't really go anywhere from what we had seen in the last issue. And we do see Luke Skywalker becoming the Jedi he's going to become in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
With the red lightsaber. That tells you something. All right. Now, with that, let's talk about the story.
Yes.
Luke and 3PO are doing commentary from their life pod to catch readers up on the 2 sea beasts that are battling it out in the distance. And you can really see how the pod is bouncing around in the ocean by the way Luke's hair is drawn.
Well, and the water is drawn, I think.
But I'm kind of captivated by Luke's big cowlick back there. So that tells you that they're being thrashed by these waves, especially that one on the bottom, which really shows a lot of motion.
Mm-hmm.
So, Randy, explain the front splash page here.
Well, we pick up where we left off with Luke in the last issue, where they're in the little pod, which seems to be changing size every time we see it. But it's they're looking at the dragons off in the water dragons off in the distance, either fighting or doing something, which we'll find out later in the story. And they're intrigued to look at what there is. But again, I look at the artwork, and you can see a lot of little tiny details, like whatever that mechanical thing is sticking out the front of the pod there.
It looks like a gun.
It could be. It could just be a sensor. It could be any of these things. I mean, look at all the gears and stuff that are going all around this. On the hatch even has some stuff on it. Who knows what it's for? That's a huge credit to Terry Austin, and it's very clean, very crisp, and I think it's very in touch with the original Star Wars movie in terms of how they built the Millennium Falcon, how they built the Death Star. They tore apart all the different models and just put them together. Who knows what all that stuff does on the back of the Millennium Falcon, but it works in terms of creating texture and a world. Whereas I think Terry Austin's work with all these little tiny details of whatever that is, a gun or whatever, or it could be nothing. It just creates that more of that feel of in spirit, I guess you'd say, of the original Star Wars and how they built those things. But it's, I just want to call note to the water. The water is drawn really beautifully. Water is not easy to draw in terms of having any type of motion or excitement to it. And it's easy to make it just start looking like explosions. And that's not what they're going for here. He wants to create water and he's just really good at water. Some of the X-Men work that he did, specifically, there's a scene where Wolverine is going through the sewers underneath the Hellfire Club with water dripping all over the place. It's just beautifully illustrated in the comic book, and he's used that same type of knowledge of water with his art here.
Great.
Wow.
Now, in the story, suddenly the tides have turned, and the rider on the green sea dragon is controlling the red sea dragon, and it's now pushing Luke's crashed ship as if it was commanded by the green beast rider. R2's sensors go off, and he detects watercrafts coming their way. And Luke says, hydra craft. I don't know what they're called here, but they're skimming the water just like I used to whip around Tatooine in my old land speeder. And 3PO replies, begging your pardon, sir, but isn't that a rather awkward analogy since there doesn't seem to be any land?
Yes! And I know the Rogue One connection now.
He doesn't seem like a 3PO kind of comment, but
No.
I laughed out loud at that. Now, the incoming hydrocraft start firing on the sea beasts, with Luke and the droids caught right in the middle. The green beast rider raises his staff, and the two beasts dive underwater. Moments later, the sea beast emerge out of the water and destroys one of the hydrocraft with a wallud.
That's right.
Best sound effect ever. Sarah, do you have a better reading on wallud? How did you read that?
Wallud! How about that?
That sounds much better.
Okay. So one of the scavengers in the craft calls out and says to watch out for the Dragon Lord. Now we have a name for that Dragon Rider.
The Dragon Lords.
Yeah. The Dragon Lord knows they've been beaten by the attackers and takes off with the dragons. So the dragons now disappear. So the scavengers now lick their wounds, having just lost 2 crafts, and see something metal bobbing in the distance and pull the life pod in with their magnetic grapples.
And Luke says, 3PO, I think we're rescued, like it or not. And 3PO replies, why is it, sir? I have a feeling it's going to be not.
Nice.
Boy, 3PO's he's a comedian in this one.
Yeah.
Look at his comebacks.
So should we talk about some of these pages that
Yes,
we're going over?
please.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to say that I found a Rogue One connection.
You know what? You did? Okay.
Can I? Well, I should say it now because we just went over the part.
Okay.
So 3PO, when he says, there doesn't seem to be any land, because Luke said something about a land speeder. And so that just sounds to me like K2SO saying, oh, we have a problem on the horizon. There is no horizon. And so I thought that was cute.
So you're saying that they stole from this issue when they wrote Rogue One?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Or we call it the Symphony of Ideas.
Yes. Was that what you were referring to, Richard?
Oh, no.
No.
I'm surprised that, you know what?
Okay.
We all see something differently.
Okay.
So, Randy, anything to point out in any of these panels we just went over?
I think it's just I laughed at that panel too, where 3PO quips back at Luke. Just the fact that because when I read what Luke said, Hydrocraft don't know where they're called here or what they're called here, but they're swimming over the water just like I used to whip around Tatooine in my old land speeder. It's like I read that. I'm like, why are you saying all of that? Like, why are you saying all that out loud? Like, you're over explaining everything. And then right there's C-3PO kind of saying exactly what I'm thinking. But isn't that awkward analogy?
That's
like,
funny.
Yeah, kind of.
And then they clear it up, and he says, "Well, because there isn't any land." But I just thought it's like sometimes the writing's a little, over explaining things, and I just thought that was
Right.
funny that 3PO was in my head.
Now, I'm loving the panel where the red dragon beast, he thrusts out of the water with a wallud, crushing one of the hydrocrafts. That is a very dynamic panel.
It is.
With the water going in and out, you can really feel the motion on that.
Definitely.
All right, now.
I wonder that makes me wonder what the artist looked at to replicate the water, because it's one thing to just see water do that, but it's another to actually examine where the waves go and how to replicate that in a single frame of drawing.
Right. All right, now, from there, Luke and the droids are brought face to face with the yokel scavengers who think 3PO is a guy in a metal suit. Well, he is. Take off his helmet, and there's Anthony Daniels.
Yeah, that's true. They don't know that.
That's what you call breaking the fourth wall.
Oh.
They're very
Yeah.
intuitive.
Luke, feeling anger, fear, and aggression, becomes upset and snaps open his red lightsaber. Now, one scavenger says, a lightsaber? The bare-faced little pup is a Jedi! So, wait a minute here. That yokel who thought someone was wearing a metal suit when he saw 3PO he now knows about Jedis and their weapons. Okay, well, you know what? He knows his history.
It's part of the galaxy. I mean, Jedi are, what, 2,000 years old at least?
So, I mean, you see these particle droids everywhere, and even whether it be a Death Star droid.
But it seems like their society doesn't have, well, I guess they have the craft, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found some inconsistencies with that too, Sarah, so.
Okay.
Now, as Luke hears the word Jedi, he reflects back to his mentor, Ben Kenobi, with a one-panel flashback of Ben and Vader dueling. Then remembers the words from old Ben. Try to divorce your actions from conscious control. Stretch out with your feelings. Did he just say divorce? Try to divorce your actions?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, and I've seen Star Wars over 100 times, and I don't remember him ever saying that.
Well, I do like this part where in that panel, the flashback panel, it says, Ben Kenobi was the last of that proud line, and he had barely started teaching me about the Force when he fell dueling Darth Vader. Yet, sometimes, I still feel as if he's with me. And I thought that was cool. It was a nice callback to the film, which many people have just seen this past year. So I really liked the tie-in. Like, they're really starting to tie in the comics to the movie more, which we haven't really seen that.
Except for the lightsaber colors.
Right.
Now, apparently, R2 is so scared, he leaks lubricant all over the deck. Which, okay, I got a good laugh out of that. And Luke jumps, kicks, and threatens in a way he never would if he were the movie Luke. And he's kicking all these scavengers overboard, and he's knocking them down. And he demands that the scavengers take him to see their governor. Now,
okay, so you don't think that's Luke?
At this point, I don't think this is movie Luke. Luke he's more reserved. He doesn't really, he's not a fighter like this. He grew up as a wimpy kid on Tatooine. Now to stretch to these actions here seem a little out of character. Now I know why they're doing it, because it's better than him just cowering in a corner.
Well, I honestly have a different take on this, because as Luke is starting to fight these scavengers, he's actually thinking, stretch out with your feelings. It's kind of like how Rey closes her eyes and feels the Force and lets it flow through her. So I think Luke is actually using the Force in these moments and growing as a person.
That's more out of anger, what he's doing here. And he's not using the Force.
Randy, what do you think?
Randy, help us out.
No, I think it's just growth of his character. I think that, when he obviously the original Star Wars is based on the Campbell book Hero of a Thousand Faces, which talks about the hero's journey. And in the movie, we do see that. We do see him go from a whiny kid to a outright hero. I think, when he makes a decision to fight in an X-Wing and fly up there, he's taken a huge step to being a full-on hero. And but he's still just one of the gang at that point. And then when all there is left is Biggs, Wedge, and Luke, and Y-Wing apparently flying around doing nothing somewhere. If you look at who survives the Death Star, like, where was that Y-Wing? He couldn't help out. Anyway, so Wedge, Biggs, and Luke are the only ones left. The youngest of them all, who is brand new to the situation, he goes ahead and takes the initiative to be the leader and to take care of it himself, which, I mean, that's a pretty big step. When I was playing sports and basketball, I was the freshman and everybody else was a junior. I was the youngest, and it takes a lot of guts to stand up to those guys and take some leadership, because they don't want to hear it from the young guy. But here he is. He went ahead and did it. That takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of growth as a character. It takes a lot of just listening to not only the Force, but your destiny to what you need to do. And I think that was a huge step for him as a person, and a little tiny thing I think that goes overlooked in terms of Mark Hamill's acting in that even when he comes back to Yavin 4, his whole demeanor and the way he stands and his pride in himself and the standing as a hero, it changes from when he first got into that X-Wing, and he gets that kiss from his sister, and he's still a little unsure of himself before he gets in the X-Wing, but from the time he gets in the X-Wing to where he's standing up there on the podium, he's a completely changed man now. He goes from a boy to being a man.
For sure. And I think you're right. This does show the character maturing, especially how we see him as being so impulsive in The Empire Strikes Back. I just thought him jumping around like Spider-Man might be a lot of character at this point, but...
Well, they have to make it look cool.
Yeah, very, very, very true. All right, now let's cut to this next page here, the splash page here, where Luke
Page
is...
215.
In the omnibus. Luke is being taken on the hydrocraft to Governor Quarg. Now, Randy, explain this page for those who have not seen it yet.
Well, this is a pretty out there kind of a splash page. It's beautifully illustrated. The classic pirate ship look, with the obviously stuff growing on it, and a city that is on the sails and the mast and everything, and it's kind of out there. It's not very Star Warsy, which we'll get to later, but it's. In terms of art, it's drawn really well, and it's very interesting.
It looks almost like someone plopped an Ewok village onto a pirate ship.
Yeah. And so, but we go from there's an inconsistency in that we were discussing, Sarah, that I agree with you, that you, like, they think C-3PO is a man in an iron suit, and then, but they have these skiffs that are obviously metal and very sleek, very modern technology, and they're going towards their base, which is, the Black Pearl.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
Yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece of artwork with all these mossy, looks like little igloos on this ship.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's like Ewok huts.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. But more of a grass roof,
right.
Little structures.
Well, if you play Disney Infinity, you know that they have grass roofs.
There you go. Now, 3PO says, Master Luke, I fear this represents more input than my comprehension circuits can assimilate, says the droid who can speak over 6 million forms of communication, but yet cannot take in the fact that there's a huge pirate ship covered in moss. Now, this has a very water world feel, which is coincidentally how Luke refers to this planet Drexel as a water world. Now, this large pirate ship is so big that Luke mistook it for a large landmass they were hoping to make into a new rebel base. So when he was up in outer space and he was looking for the new rebel base and saw this huge landmass on Drexel, he thought, okay, this is going to be perfect. So from his ship, he assessed this as being somewhere where it had a large island or big enough to house a new base.
I think what he was sensing, it's the ship's sensors were sensing a landmass.
Yes, but as big as these ships are, could you really consider it a landmass?
Not from what we can see here, but perhaps there's a lot more of them in the background.
Okay. You know what? I'm just saying. Just saying. All right, now we are now introduced to this plotline's pudgy bad guy, Governor Quarg, who wears an old G.I. Joe army helmet.
All right, now he starts yelling about how everyone on board is a traitor in the war against the Dragon Lords. Men are expendable. Skimmers, definitely not.
So I guess we're now defining him as the ultimate bad guy, where he cares more about scrap metal than his own men.
Yes.
Isn't that so DC? I mean, comics, not the Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Now, trying to say...
No, it's very Washington, D.C.
Okay, I was trying to avoid any kind of political commentary, but you said
brought it up.
You said it very, very well. Now, trying to save their butts, the scavengers show Quarg the metallic robots. Luke, once again, in anger, ignites his white lightsaber this time and says, I don't think there's a soul on this floating mess of yours who knows what these droids are really worth. A scavenger then tells Quarg that he swings a lightsaber just like one of them Jedi Knights the histories tell him about. So the man knows his prequel history, obviously. And Quarg says, there's far more than being a Jedi than that, or so my father always insisted. Oh, backstory. He likened them to warriors, priests, and wizard, but of course he hated and feared them too. Now, initially, I thought, ooh, is his father a separatist? But then I looked into it, and I saw that Quarg's father had a business where he would scramble the computers on board starships as they were passing by this asteroid field, causing them to crash into the asteroids, and then he would sell the salvaged parts until the Jedi found out about it and put him out of business, sending Quarg's father down to Drexel, which is why his son now controls this water world.
Wait, so this is history you found somewhere?
This is history I found online because I thought, ooh, is Quarg a separatist, seeing how he hates the Jedi?
Oh, okay.
There was some kind of a connection there, but then I looked it up and...
You thought he might be like Dooku's son or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
It's the love child of Dooku and Asajj Ventress, and he's super fat.
Wow. Yeah, it doesn't really look like it here. All right,
No,
so
I can see where you're going.
should we go over some of these panels?
Yeah, now, Randy, what do you make out of Quarg's appearance?
Yes.
It's humor to me. I mean, it's really silly. You kind of they're inferring a. Well, we keep mentioning Waterworld. The Waterworld is not going to come out in the movies for several years. If you remember, the character played by Dennis Hopper reminds me of him with the medals and kind of
Right.
self-proclaimed general of sort, or a fascist dictator sort. You know, even with the shoulder, what are those called?
Epaulets?
Epaulets. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah, what he said.
Because his outfit is the general soldier jacket, which is too tight. And then he's got a bunch of medals on that. But then over that, and even over the epaulets, he's wearing like a king's cape with red and then white fur lined, cape. And then on his head, he's wearing a soldier helmet. So it's a very odd amalgam of things.
Well, it almost seems like it's the trophies from past conquests.
You have a point there. I bet that's what it is.
Yeah, because he does have a lot of medals that if he's just been on Drexel his whole life, since that's where he was born, that where did he get all of this? Especially this big cowardly lion cape.
Cape, right. Interesting.
But it's compensating for his insecurity, obviously, just kind of overdoing it and telling everybody how great he is and how wonderful he is, and through his medals and his cape, and all this kind of sounds familiar.
Connections. All right, now, Quarg wants to hear Luke out and brings him aboard his pirate ship. Just then, Luke wishes his good friend and savior, Han Solo, was there to help him out of this. And that provides a very nice segue.
That's right, to the Star Destroyer that Crimson Jack has hijacked and is about to make the jump to hyperspace. Woohoo, Crimson Jack is back.
Yeah. So, Randy, explain this panel right over here where the Star Destroyer is making the jump into hyperspace.
Well, they're out in the middle of space, obviously, and you got the planets in the background. And more I was reading this, and I know this was introduced in the when they first brought Crimson Jack into it. But I like this idea of a stolen Star Destroyer. It's plausible, I guess.
And it comes back in the Star Wars comics now.
Right.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's like, because it's just like in pirate movies, the commandeering of other ships. And that's how a lot of them came to be. They'd commandeer ships from the navies and things like that. But I think it would be quite a feat to overtake even, well, they'll explain later how they did it. But even that is a big feat to overtake and commandeer a Star Destroyer.
Right.
And I like that. I like that part of this character. Still not crazy about his outfit.
I love his outfit.
I love it,
Are
man.
you kidding me? If only someone would cosplay as that. Oh, wait.
It's very you.
I think you need to cosplay that at Star Wars Celebration.
Ooh, maybe I will.
For a day.
Maybe.
And I'll do Jackson.
All right. Now, before we move on, are we excited that Crimson Jack is a continuing character this far into the series? Okay. I just wanted you to say that, Sarah.
I have a nice crush on Crimson Jack.
That was a quick yes.
Nice. All right, so now Han Solo is on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, sitting in the comfiest of captain chairs that I've ever seen.
These are so weird.
Those are Barca loungers. Now he's thinking things through about the bluff that seems to have gotten away from him, where he's leading Jack to the Drexel system to find the hidden rebellion treasure. However, we all know that this is Leia's idea to go there and find Luke.
Right.
So they're just pretty much hitching a ride to the Drexel system, and hoping Jack will forget all about this treasure. But it's Jack. He's a pirate. He'll never forget about it.
No.
Now, Crimson Jack knows something is up with Han since he seems very distracted. Han redirects Jack's line of thought and asks him about how he acquired this Star Destroyer. Now, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Jack tells him in a flashback panel that they were in the right place at the right time. After the Rebel Alliance had won their first victory over the Empire forces, there were so many casualties. And there is your Rogue One reference. The Rebel Alliance had won their first victory over the Empire.
Okay.
So now one of the casualties I was just talking about was a wounded Star Destroyer that chased down the blockade runner. Now we never really established that it had been wounded.
Mm-hmm.
The Devastator Star Destroyer that chased down the blockade runner.
Okay.
That is the Star Destroyer that is in this issue.
How do you know?
That's the Devastator. Because Crimson Jack said that after the Rebel Alliance had won their first victory over the Empire, there were many casualties. And he was referring to casualties of the Empire, and this being a casualty, the Star Destroyer.
Right.
And the Star Destroyer we know is the Star Destroyer Devastator, commanded by Darth Vader.
Okay.
No, your timeline's off. But I have a better explanation. But let's just go by what you're saying. Vader is chasing the Tantive 4 with the Devastator, and then goes to the Death Star in Devastator. So this can't be the Devastator because that is still in use. Vader has it.
Well, we don't know that the Devastator is the ship that's going to the Death Star in Star Wars. Well, there's a lot of Star Destroyers.
Right.
But we do know that.
But in movies, when you the last place the character was at is where you have to assume that's where they are. So if even if it's a car, if you have Steve McQueen in a certain type of car going through the city, and they go away and talk to you see what the bad guy's doing in his lair, and now you see Steve McQueen in his car driving over a bridge, you have to assume he never got out of the car and got into a different car. You have to assume it's the same car. So you have Vader and the Devastator the last time you see him, and the next time you see a Star Destroyer headed to the Death Star, and then you see him in the Death Star, you have to assume that was the same Star Destroyer that was taking Vader to the Death Star.
But then we cut immediately into the Death Star, and there's Vader. And there could be that passage of time, and all Star Destroyers look the same, whereas not every car is going to look like Steve McQueen's little roadster. But
there were 3 Star Destroyers or so at that Battle of Scarif, so maybe I like what you're thinking, Richard. Is that one of those is the one that Crimson Jack commandeered?
And this is what Crimson Jack is saying, that one of the casualties of the Empire is their fallen Star Destroyer, which was the Devastator. Now,
I don't know which names were.
But there's a lot of buts in this.
The battle at Scarif was not the Rebels' first victory.
Well, yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
At this point in the comic book, what Crimson Jack is referring to is the opening title crawl to Star Wars.
Right.
About how the Rebel Alliance had won their first victory against the Empire.
And that's referring to Scarif.
Exactly.
So what are you thinking it's referring to, Randy?
Well, there's the Battle of Ralator,
which was
that happens before Rogue One, which they have. I don't remember exactly what took place there, which I think it had something to do with discovering the information about having everything has to do with the Death Star. But the Battle of Ralator was a really big battle.
Where do we hear about this?
Well, when the movie came out, and I guess the novel, they talked about the Ralator. Oh. And in other lore throughout the years, they've talked about Ralator as being the location of the first victory of the Rebel Alliance.
I just think Rogue One retconned that and said that the Battle of Scarif is the first victory.
Yeah, and
I think it's a victory, but even if you go back in time, when you talk about when Star Wars first came out and it's talking about their first victory, that's what they're talking about, is the Battle of Ralator.
Well, what do our Skywalkers think? I think they should tweet at us which one is right, or what do you guys think? Tweet at us at SkywalkingPod.
No, it depends on what they have thrown out in terms of canon goes and things like that. Because, like I said, it was in the novel. As far as I know, they didn't throw the Star Wars novel out.
Wait,
canon.
so you're saying this was in the novel of Star Wars A New Hope, not the novel of Rogue One?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are straddling
Fuzzy.
the line of canon. However, but to move one step further, Vader's Star Destroyer, the Devastator, is seen at the Battle of Hoth. So that would imply the Empire never lost their Star Destroyer to begin with. But you know what? I have a way to retcon this later on.
How is it seen? It's in. You say the Devastator's in his Death Squadron.
Yes.
Wasn't that the Executor?
Yeah, that's the Executor.
In
The
Battle of
Executor.
Hoth?
The big, huge one. The
Yeah.
the Super Star Destroyer,
Yeah.
the Executor.
But you see, the Executor surrounded by
Other?
the other Star Destroyers. And one of those Star Destroyers was the Devastator.
So how do you know what these names are? Because I don't see any license plates on these.
After 40 years, you know these things.
Well, I was going to say that too.
All right, so we all have our
We got
beliefs
real geeky
about
there.
what Star Destroyer this is. You know what?
Okay.
And it's all good.
It's all from a certain
It's all
point of
good.
view.
There you go.
And I also think this might be even a Victory class Star Destroyer, not an Imperial class.
It's
Okay.
a whole different podcast there, Randy.
Wow.
We'll come back to
Okay.
Randy half an hour later. He's
Yeah.
still reeling off Star Destroyers.
So there's a good talking point for Skywalker's right in.
Yes.
Not only do you think that the first battle was Scarif, or was it Ralter, or was it something else?
Okay.
All right, now back to our story already in progress.
Yes. So Crimson Jack now reveals to Han that he has higher ambitions than being a pirate, and the treasure on the Drexel system is a shortcut to realizing that dream.
Ooh, he's
Yeah.
developing as a character now.
So just then, there's an emergency on the observation deck. Jack's co-pirate has gone crazy. This is Jolie. Now, apparently there was some flirting, and some of the crew took it as a go-ahead signal and made some moves that she didn't quite appreciate. So she was still upset about seeing Leia kissing Han.
That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Jolie then says,
It's that Princess Leia's fault. She's the one who set me thinking with all her blather about.
and when Han presses her to finish her sentence, she slaps him across the face. However, no one is looking at the slap.
No?
Randy, are you looking at the slap?
Oh.
Whap!
Oh, I see.
the
Page 222.
lopsided boobies.
Yes. Yes, the boobs that defy gravity. You know what? I called them super boobs in my thing. I was like, okay, no one's boobs looks like that. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's not what I was referring to, but okay, I'll
I
go
think
with what you were thinking about.
I think you were.
There's another very PG-13 panel, the next panel when she's walking away. We
Yes.
see her derriere,
We see.
and
Yes.
lots of it. Now, just to remind everyone, Jolie and Leia had some girl time to talk about how good of a kisser Han was, and that got her all fluttered and
Flustered.
and flustered and frustrated. Now, I still think that she's got something for Leia and not Han.
Seeing this episode.
I was gonna say, who's she jealous of?
Yes.
Yeah, the jury's still out.
Well, and Crimson Jack says that it's Han, he just assumes, but I think you guys are right. I think she's totally into Leia, and she was just not having any of the guys, handling her.
Yeah, guys see this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was gonna say, how 70s is this though? That basically it's the woman's fault, right?
The
That
one's
these
fault for
guys
what?
are obviously making these rude advances on her, yet
Oh.
it's her fault.
Well,
Right.
you know what? Maybe
And then when it's her fault, no, it's Leia's fault.
Uh-huh.
maybe if she made other wardrobe choices, this
Yeah.
all wouldn't have happened. No, I'm not saying a woman can wear whatever she wants, but she's gonna wear something like that, and things are going to happen. That's just how physiology works.
It can't be, advances and stuff is not a woman's fault, no matter what she's wearing. So
No, not at all. But you know what? Millions of years of evolution to what guys do. Guys are hunters and gatherers, and we're there to
And use your eyes.
procreate, and that's just evolution right there, and there's just no way around that. But still, you know what? You're right, Randy. Women can wear and should wear whatever they want, but now you're battling with how guys have evolved over millions of years. Just saying.
All right.
All right, now we cut to the inside of the Millennium Falcon, where Chewie is being guarded by a one-eyed Robin Hood. Now, is that Chewbacca? He looks much more fluffier with a bald face.
Wait, now Chewbacca was in this comic? What?
Yeah, I think that's Chewbacca. Randy, what do you make of that?
That's a lion.
He just got a shower and did his little hair drying, blow drying.
His hair got too fluffy.
It got it is like a big mane of a lion.
It is.
This was his Poison phase, so he was really into the band Poison and just doing a little teasing.
Chewie's going to become part of a hair band.
Yeah.
Now, this scene doesn't really go anywhere other than tell us that Chewie has been working on a computer tap for Jack.
Oh, right. In the Millennium Falcon,
In the Millennium Falcon, yeah.
Yeah.
Just then, the Star Destroyer, that we all agree is the Devastator.
Whatever.
Randy, stay out of this. Comes out of light speed into the Drexel system, just like Han said. However, something alarms Jack, and he draws his blaster on Han. He sees that Drexel is a water world. Why would the rebellion hide a treasure there, he thinks. And I'm thinking, well, why not? Seemed like a pretty good place, actually. Mm-hmm. And then Han says, just get the princess up here, and I'll prove it to you. Then thinks, or die trying. And there you have your cliffhanger for this issue number 12, DOOMWORLD. The end. All right, so now, with all of that said and reviewed, are our thoughts any different on this issue? Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't want to give the wrong impression when we first started. Not that this isn't exciting. It's more exciting than some of the other ones. But I think it's a good, solid. It takes us from point A to point B, but I feel like there's something bigger and even more exciting coming.
Mm.
All right.
Okay.
Now, I do really like this storyline of the ruse that Leia has really concocted about taking her to the Drexel system to find this treasure and just getting a ride there to go and find Luke. But I still do think that the storylines could progress a little bit quicker.
So, yeah, I don't think my opinion's changed since the beginning. So, what is everyone's favorite line of dialogue? You know, Richard, let's start with you.
I would say my favorite line of dialogue comes when the scavenger, the yokel, says of 3PO, one of them is wearing a metal suit. I thought that was just hilarious. And I've got to wonder what the impetus of that line was. Was it a call out to Anthony Daniels? Or do these yokels really think that these droids are suits of armor?
Right.
So that would be my favorite pick for line of dialogue.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go right after you since mine kind of dovetails with that because it is a line that one of the scavengers says, and it is, "Stop firing! They're out of range, running off like whipped womp rats." So I thought it was fun that they used womp rats in there. Much like Han Solo says, "moof milkers," or, you have your famous lines of, what are like those bottom feeder creatures that are across the galaxy.
Great when you can refer to something within that galaxy and a saying like that.
Yeah.
All right, Randy,
which apparently womp rats are universal and they're on all planets, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Even water worlds.
So people know everywhere what a womp rat is.
Yeah.
So this guy doesn't know what a protocol droid is, but he knows Jedis, knows lightsabers, and they know womp rats.
Yep.
Womp rats.
Good.
So my favorite dialogue is actually the exchange from Jolie. It's two panels, basically, when she says, "Anyway, it's the Princess Leia's fault. She's the one who set me thinking with all of her blather about." And Han says, "About what, Jolie?" And she goes, "Wow! About you and how well you kiss, you Corellian clown." And I love that line because if I had a nickel for every time someone said that to me.
You Corellian clown. I like that.
No, the part before that.
Oh. About you and how well you kiss.
You know what? Can you get Denise on the line? Let me ask her about this one. Hey, Denise.
Nice.
All right, now
she'll concur.
Okay.
Oh, you modest fool, you. All right, now how about favorite panel?
This one was hard because, of course, I was going on and on about how much I loved the drawing of the water. And so with that in mind, I picked, it's panel 6, it's page 6 for me. I don't know what it is in the omnibus, but it's when the dragon comes back out of the water in the Walud.
Oh, yes.
The Walud. Not that panel, but the one below it where it says, the Dragon Lord. I just think there's a lot of action and the movement of the water, and then you also have a good example of all the details that Austin uses here with not only the water, but of the ship. And it's just very exciting, and I like it. It's very cool.
Okay.
Nice.
Now, for those of you reading along from the omnibus, that is on page 210.
Yes.
Right, Sarah?
Okay, well, I had 3 listed here, so I guess I'm going to pick. And actually, I think I'm going to pick not the splash page of the pirate ship.
Okay, good.
But that's page 215 of the omnibus, but the page right before that, 214, the middle panel where Luke is leaping up. Now, in the very panel that you thought was so un-Luke-like, I really like. I love the movement here, and he's leaping up and going whack as he kicks a guy in the back and wielding his lightsaber, and I just think it's very dynamic.
He's even spinning a web any size.
Yeah.
Kind of a punk move, by the way.
Yeah, it
Kicking a
is.
guy in the back.
It is, but
Which is why I'm saying this is not really Luke from the movie.
It's self-defense, okay?
But you know what? Dynamically, panel-wise, it's a great...
It draws your eye.
Because the background is all red.
Yep.
To really oversell his anger.
It's nice. All right,
Very
Richard?
good choice there.
Now, I'm going to go with the splash page on page 215, where the hydrocraft is just pulling up to Quarg's pirate ship. And you see another pirate ship in the background. And they're so looming. The sky in the back is a light blue. It's not really like a daytime blue. It's almost like a dusk, which you would think would be more of an orangish. You have this yellow sun burning in the upper left, and these ships are covered in those moss huts. There's such a story to tell with those ships and the structures on them. Like how long has that been there? Has the moss grown around these little hut structures? Did it go through something? Is this battle damage? There's so much story in that splash page, which makes it my favorite panel of the issue.
It's very interesting because in the comic book version, see yours, you have it looks like a sun up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the comic book, the sky's a little bit darker, and they look like moons up in the sky. The waters are very dark, and it just suggests that it's nighttime.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's very contradictory because it would seem like it would be night, but the sky says day. Well,
to me, and I didn't really say this before, but when I first saw this pirate ship, for lack of a better word, it almost looks like a pirate ship / a Swiss Family Robinson treehouse / Neverland. Looks like this could be something you'd find in Neverland. So
it also looks like Tarzan's treehouse at Disneyland.
Yes, that too. Which was the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse.
Yeah, it is. What is it now?
It's Tarzan's treehouse.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes sense in the comics for them to make it look more like nighttime because in the panel before that it says the aging craft starts forward towards the distant horizon. So this suggests that it was a long trip.
Right.
To get to these ships to where it is now nighttime.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that answers that question.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to the most non-Star Wars moment or line of dialogue in this issue.
Mine is exactly the part that we were just talking about, the pirate ships. As beautifully drawn as that is, and it is really, really great artwork. It's not really Star Wars at all. I mean, it looks like Pirates of the Caribbean with something out of place with the little ship down there. I'm not complaining. It's just if we're going to find something that's non-Star Wars, the fact that it looks so much exactly like an old wooden ship, it's not exotic enough in Star Wars world type of things. Now, Sarah pointed out that it does kind of look like an Ewok hut, which we would find later in Return of the Jedi, a couple of years later, at least a few years later, and but this is kind of too much earthbound stuff
right
in this.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
Well, I was going to say my most un-Star Wars moment would be that, Crimson Jack was talking about winning this Star Destroyer over because I wasn't thinking of the right, battle. But I'm going to change that to these Barca loungers that are on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, apparently. Now, we all know that Imperials are not into nice things.
Well, this was modified by Crimson Jack.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. All right, now, for me, the most non-Star Wars panel comes on page 222 of the Omnibus, where Jolie almost falls out of her top as she's slugging Han Solo.
I bet you like that one.
No, this is the most non-Star Wars.
I know.
It does read comic book of the time, but for Star Wars,
right,
and for like the 7, 8-year-olds, that
Silly.
just seems out of place. Continuing on with the next panel, where she's walking away and leaving a very nice view.
It's the educational portion of the comic.
All right, now, what is something that you could tie into from this issue into later movies or storylines?
I'm going to say Luke's character arc.
Okay.
So, you know how Luke he finds himself in trouble, and instead of just waiting to see what happens to him, he actually takes control of the situation. It's like he's learned from his Death Star experience.
Well, I think just the about the Death Star, the Star Destroyer being recovered by Crimson Jack, and the story about commandeering it, and then our discussion about what was the first battle won, which was of course Ralter, and that this is in fact not the Devastator, but that's probably the closest thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the same idea, but opposite. And I'm thinking that Darth Vader had to have his Super Star Destroyer built because his Devastator was stolen. So he thought, I could have another Star Destroyer built, or I could have a Super Star Destroyer built. And that was the Executor we see in The Empire Strikes Back. But then later on, the Empire finds the Devastator and steals it back from Captain Jack.
Okay, so this is your head
By the way,
canon.
what an incredible waste of funds.
What, the Executor?
Executor. I mean, at least you could justify the Star Destroyer in your evil plan that it destroys planets, right? The Super Star Destroyer is just a big spaceship.
Well, the Super Star Destroyer, I think, you see that hovering above, and I think it's more of a psychological
Intimidation factor?
Intimidation.
Yeah, it's like a psychological fear.
That's a lot of money to spend. They must have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe Darth Vader put in a little of his own.
no, he didn't. That's not the Vader I know.
No?
Not at all.
I don't think he has money.
Oh, he does.
He's cheap.
He's very, very wealthy, according to the comics.
Oh.
He's very frugal.
He's kind of like George Lucas in that way.
You know how rich people stay rich?
They don't spend their money.
Yep.
Exactly.
They save it. All right, so now that's
Spend it on helmets.
That's my connection to a later Star Wars movie, proving Randy wrong. Now, finally, who is the most valuable character in this issue?
Well, I stepped outside the box on this one, and I gave the MVP to Terry Austin, the artist, the inker. I think it's just it really adds not only some beautiful artwork to the line of comics, but it gives it some what's the word I'm looking for here? It gives it some credentials to be alongside X-Men, to be alongside Spider-Man, to be alongside of all these comics that were on the stands before. Because I mean, it's just we've paid praises to the different artists that have been in these Star Wars comics so far, but the attitude towards it was just it was a throwaway. They're just trying to make some money because the movie was big. By having Terry Austin do this artwork, it really said, this is a real comic, and it deserves your attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, you?
I am going to go with R2 because he saves the day once again. He leaks lubricant on the deck, and I don't think that's because he was scared. I think he was helping out Luke, because what that lubricant does is it makes all the scavengers slip and fall and can't train their guns on Luke so that Luke can take advantage of the situation.
Oh, there's a 2-in-1 answer there, because that's what R2 does in Revenge of the Sith with the super battle droids.
Right. So there you go.
There you go. All right, good.
What about you, Richard?
I'm going to go with Princess Leia, who we never see in this issue.
No, we don't.
However, she is the one that hatches the plan to have Crimson Jack bring them to the Drexel system so she can find Luke, which is the thrust of the Han Solo storyline. Other than that, I think everyone just kind of stays very, very static in this. And Leia is the one really moving things forward.
Okay, interesting.
I actually have a question before we're done here.
Okay.
To you guys, and it's creating another discussion here real quick, is we've had a lot of different styles so far in the Star Wars line. But there's a definite look, at least to the faces, that Carmine Infantino has created in his penciling. It's very stylized. And if you follow the Star Wars comics or his other comics, you can see a lot of the faces look pretty much exactly the way that he draws them here. Art, of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with these. So it comes down to taste. So I was just curious as to what you guys thought of this style and this take.
I'm a big fan of his style. And I know that he's drawing these characters to be comic characters, not like we see them in the film. Because Luke looks like he's been at the gym nonstop since the Battle of Yavin. He's got this neck the size of a tree trunk. So I understand the direction he's going in, and I do like the fact that we see more details, especially in R2 and 3PO, and they are starting to move like the droids we know from the films, other than R2's shrugging shoulders.
And looking at just the faces in the issue, I mean, I still don't think Luke really looks like Luke, or Han really looks like Han, but any of the other characters that aren't, movie accurate, you don't have to be movie accurate, I think he does a really good job of portraying them, the details on their faces, their expressions, and that they're very symmetrical. If you look at some of the faces in previous episodes, some people's eyes are kind of off, or it's not as symmetrical. So I think his detail work is really good.
Yeah, with that, I'm really anxious to see how these character representations progress as we get into later issues.
Well, with me, I agree with you, Sarah. I think the non-main characters are drawn very well, and I can see that they had a lot of fun with them. Again, it's all a matter of taste. I'm not saying that anything is drawn poorly. I think that I'm just not a fan of the style of the main characters,
right?
Because I feel like they're kind of like they look so much alike.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll give it is that they're consistent. Mm-hmm. It's like Luke looks like the same Luke on every panel that Luke is drawn, as is Han Solo and Princess Leia in the other comics that she's portrayed. They're so far removed from what the main characters look like that it's, and me, I'm not one for being a stickler about things looking like they are in the movies, but they're so far removed and so stylized that they don't, to me, especially Han Solo, does not represent
Han,
the Harrison Ford feel or look.
They almost look like the 1995 action figure Power of the Force line.
Right.
Where each one was just pumped like Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm. Big jawline.
Yes.
I mean, Han Solo's nose is very pinched, whereas as we all know, Harrison Ford has, I don't say a large nose, but it's definitely got that crooked shape to it, And
I do wish, and like we were saying earlier, I think they're drawing too much on their other comics for these characters. I want to see more aliens going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. Now, what do you say we wrap things up on Star Wars issue number 12, DOOMWORLD?
All right, and we'll see everyone back for issue number 13, which is titled Day of the Dragon Lords. Will they stick with that title? Stay tuned and find out.
But probably not.
All right, well, we'd love to thank Rob Dellinger for the awesome jingle at the opening of our show. So thank you, and Rob Dellinger is...
the John Williams of podcasting. And we want to thank all the Skywalkers out there who listen to each and every episode of classic Marvel Star Wars comics. With every episode, the downloads are just becoming much, much, much
much more.
And we thank you to the Skywalkers who are out there sharing the show and spreading the word about these classic Marvel Star Wars comics.
That's right. And if you'd like to keep in touch with us, you can do that on Twitter or Periscope or Instagram at SkywalkingPod. And Randy, what is your Twitter?
A couple of things. I actually have a plug on that right now. You can, of course, find me at I changed it actually since last time, just so that it's more uniform. Mm-hmm. On Instagram and Twitter, you can find me at Randy Martinez 40. So it's all Randy Martinez 40, and then you can always find me at Hollywood Randy on Facebook. But the thing I want to plug is I've through Denise. Denise has these great ideas for promoting my going to Celebration. So she helped and created a Star Wars Randy Twitter tag. Right?
Nice.
That's its page. So Star Wars Randy, and this is dedicated completely to my Celebration experiences over the years. So everything and anything that I have photos of or artwork going through the years, starting back at Celebration 1, all that I could find of that. It's all on there. So definitely go follow at Star Wars Randy. Really easy to remember, and become part of that thread. And as we get closer to Celebration, we'll, of course, post more things about the artwork I'm creating, which I'm allowed to post, and stories, and also some different types of things of what we're going to be bringing to Celebration with us and what we're going to be doing at Celebration. So it's a very good Twitter account to follow.
Awesome. Well, we will be putting that link in our show notes. All right, Skywalkers. Well, thank you for joining us today.
For Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, this is Richard.
This is Sarah.
And this is Randy.
And
always remember, Forp!
Gronk!
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
Yeah, you're just going to get excited.
I know.
Okay.
All right, and here we go! At last, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy. This is the tagline on the cover of each... Oh, lost my place.
That's fine. Do it again because you were peeking.
Peeking? All right.
I think we explained it a little bit last time on how this works. Mm-hmm. In that we have to submit a concept sketch, basically, and it helps if you do it in color. It just helps a lot because people can't imagine it in anything else but color. So basically I had to put something together fairly quick and fairly detailed, more than what a normal sketch is, and color it and send it in, and then they accept you or they don't accept you. And so they accepted me, which means once you get that call, now you have to kind of put everything into to overdrive and either tighten it up or do whatever you're going to do that's to make it look like it's going to look. Now, for my piece, there's a lot of work to do. Right. In terms of from the concept to final piece. And but it's looking really good. I'm really excited about it.
Meanwhile.
Okay, sorry. Meanwhile. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Now, Han leading... Now, this issue, DOOMWORLD, came out March 14th, 1978, and was written by Archie Goodwin, penciler by Carmine Infantino. Now, do you have a window open?
Sometimes these big airplanes go by.
Right now, you're not going to hear Randy.
Well, I'm gonna ask him something.
Okay.
Do you want me to put it on mute?
No.
Or just wait?
Okay.
It's almost there.
All right, he's gone.
There you go.
Now, Randy, explain to me what the penciler does as opposed to like something else, like an artist or a colorist.
Okay, well, the way that I guess we'll go over this pretty thorough here. Okay, there's usually the penciler, inker, and a colorist. That's kind of like the three parts of a notification on your iPad. Let me start that over.
All right, let me
ask you again?
Yeah, let me intro this again.
Okay, let me make sure this is the sounds turned down. I didn't realize that. Okay. Volume down on that. Let's see, where's the volume on this? Volume's down on that. And mute's on there. Okay.
All right. So from the top of this. Now this. Now.
John Byrne and Terry Austin were like the Lennon and McCartney of comics. I mean, to me, that was the high point of comic book art. I mean, John Byrne and Terry Austin were just an amazing duo and my favorite comic book artwork by far. And there's a lot of great artists out there like Romita and people like that, but I just love John Byrne and Terry Austin's work together. If you ever seen John Byrne's pencil work, you'll notice that the inking looks very similar to the pencil work, which was actually a very big talent in itself to be able to make John Byrne's pencils come alive and still look like his pencils without a whole lot of embellishment.
You know what? I just found the new Star Wars connection with this comic book, Richard.
Oh?
Not the Rogue One connection, but the new Star Wars connection.
Is that something to save till the end?
No. Star Wars The Last Jedi. It's in red. The font. Luke's lightsaber's in red. See? See where I'm going with this?
I do. And
yeah, sorry. She brought it up, so it's Sarah's fault.
No, that's okay.
Which is actually
interested...
blaming Sarah is actually a theme for later on in this comic. So.
Oh, Sarah.
What?
A scavenger tells Quarg that he swings a lightsaber just like one of them Jedi Knights the histories tell us about. One more time. Well, one of the casualties... wait till the police siren goes by.
Well, if you're talking,
that's
it doesn't matter.
But if Randy wants to cut in. All right.
Okay, then go. How many can you name off that were in the Death Squadron?
There's the Devastator, the Devastator 2, the Devastator 3.
I think you're lying.
That's pretty convenient that they're all 2, 3. It's like Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4.
That's how many can you name?
Well, I'm not convinced the Devastator's in that group, but there's the Conquest. There's the Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Executor, of course. There's the I can't remember the one. I think the Conquest is chasing the Millennium Falcon, I believe.
Yes. Well, no, that's the Avenger.
That the Avenger?
Yes.
How do you guys know this stuff?
Which one was Veer as the general? Because you know what? I played that stupid the CCG game, the card game, and it gave all kinds of lore.
Okay.
At the top of it, for each one of the different Star Destroyers, they have the names.
Okay.
There's the Tyrant.
Uh-huh.
Was there an Inquisitor?
That was just a character in Rebels.
No, I think there was a Star Destroyer named Inquisitor. That might have been in Return of the Jedi. But anyways, that's about all I can remember.
Right, but he's doing it in anger.
That's my moment. You don't have to argue with me.
But he's also growing into the character that we see from The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Okay.
So
all right. I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Doesn't sound like it, but okay. We'll talk later at dinner.
Yes, we will.
Which I'll eat and you won't.
Okay, Randy. What do you think? Now, I'll cut that part out. Now, finally, what...
Forp.
Always reminding you to... Forp!
All right.
Gives us a couple of options there. All right. I think we are good.